on geraldclark77.com. And without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi, Gerald. You're very welcome to the show.
Hey, James. It's really terrific to be back with you. I'm really excited to pick up back where we left off.
Yeah, it's like a meeting of the minds, Gerald. And, you know, I get so much out of these shows because I love the knowledge and I love the background and the depth of research that you do, Gerald. And I know we took a break for the last show on Nibiru, which was fantastic, by the way. And it's getting great hits. And what a body of research you did for that, Gerald. Nice to take a break from the Emerald Tablets. I know we're coming back to them today. We're going to do Emerald Tablets 6 and 7 from your book, which is Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. That's what we're focusing on for this podcast. I'm really feeling excited, Gerald, because we're getting somewhere, and this has been like a journey for us too. Do you see that as well?
I do, and because of the topics in Tablet 6 and 7, it goes right to the heart of what's going on in society today and some of the profound issues that the Nibiru status report brought up, and facing your fears of transition. Those get addressed in these two tablets, so I think it's very timely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and this is the thing, Gerald. A little confused at the start. I went, Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. What's this got to do with the Anunnaki? Why this change in title of the book? Gerald was doing this Anunnaki book, and now he's doing this Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. But I get it now, Gerald. The more I do every show, the more I get it. And this is about rising, Gerald. This is about ascension. This is about knowledge. And it's about this mix of spirituality, history, technology, our origins, civilizations, and it's all in there in the one big mix, whether we like it or not. And this is what we're trying to sift through, Gerald.
Well, you said that really well. I don't know if I could have said that any better, but the reality was I saw the Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising as a direct extension from the question that got asked by many people: if the Anunnaki genetically modified a Neanderthal to create us, then who created the Anunnaki? And, you know, that goes right to the heart of, well, who's this creator, God, whatever label you want to put on this intelligent force that manifested all matter and put us into the state we're in? A deep, deep question. Who we are, where we come from, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, when you realize that one of their Anunnaki progenitors that was a benefactor to mankind, and that was Thoth in Egypt, that was Ningshita in Sumeria. This was Enki's premier scientific son, second one born after Marduk. Well, he turned out to be a interest carrier for Thoth, so that's why I chose him to tell the Anunnaki story that not only exposed how you were enslaved, but what the way out was. And that's what we're trying to focus on. Yeah, we kind of got ensconced heavy in the Emerald Tablets, but there's a lot more to the book than just Chapter 5. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get to that.
And we'll get to that, for sure, Gerald. What I love about the shows we're doing, Gerald, is there's so much information in your head that I just love because it's coming out, and it's coming out in a very beautiful way, and that's what I'm trying to do on these shows, is to get that out and deliver it to the public, because there's just so much more behind what you've done in the book. It's prolific.
Well, you said something on a radio show, and I hope I didn't interrupt you. Just the other day that I listened to you, you described yourself as a systems engineer, an analyst. Well, I played that role many times as well, and I have this particular problem, I guess you could say, where I don't like pieces. I want to see the whole piece, the whole picture, in order to make the best decisions at wherever I am in the simulator. And I learned this as a military pilot too. You know, it's a situation awareness issue that humans have. Mm-hmm. And as a system analyst, you try to be aware of all the things that are affecting a system. So you're trying to develop a meta-awareness. Mm-hmm. Well, I do the same thing with everything that I do. And it turned out on this Anunnaki thing, I had to stew on it for a very time too. And it's not fully put together. I mean, they have occluded who they are and what their role was, so that when you're operating as a force in secret, you can be far more effective than you can when you're out in the public. Mm-hmm. Okay, because you don't even know where to go to attack the source, right? That's causing either good or ill. So operating in secret is a very powerful thing, and we're going to talk about what they did in the Emerald Tablets, both light and dark, and this idea of facing darkness in our paths. Yeah, everybody kind of goes, yeah, I'm having a rough day or whatever, but listen. In this tablet, he makes the idea of this struggle, this warfare between light and dark, very real, and nobody is exempt.
Wow. Let's just, for the audience, we're going to do two tablets today, tablet 6, and in the second half of the show, tablet 7. Tablet 6, the keys of magic. If that wasn't an illustrious title, if ever there was one, Gerald, the keys of magic. What is this magic? Let's get into this, Gerald. Let's go into in deep.
Well, like everything else that Thoth does in the Emerald Tablets, he presents it to you poetically as a scientist, oftentimes using multiple repetitious sequences of different symbols to try to get it through your thick skull, right?
Sure.
So he titled it The Keys of Magic, but so the first thing to think is, oh gosh, there's these incantations in here, we got to make some pots of witch's brew and all. No, not at all. So first of all, you got to ask yourself, what is magic? Magic is advanced knowledge that you don't understand. So anytime somebody does a scientific breakthrough or something that's not known to the rest of the world, well, it's magical until everybody else understands how it works. I'll give you anti-gravity, for instance. That's magical. Only the UFOs can do that. Well, if you knew the secrets of overcoming gravity, well, you'd have that magic too. So the idea of redefining that term is what I want you to think about. So this tablet starts by setting this historical background. Way back, it turns out to be the inception when these avatars, remember 32 of them came down with him to assess the state of the planet, realizing everybody's enslaved in darkness. Well, this is kind of a continuation on that. So this historical background, he talks a little bit about this emergence of darkness and the warfare with the light. And it goes all the way back to the very first days of man. Well, which genetic offspring are they talking about? The one that the Anunnaki did to the Neanderthals, or were there others? Right? Because some of these beings state that they had forms of being a man, and they ascended, and now they're playing these various roles as light beings, avatars that had in the past been a manifestation of matter as a man. So that's trippy. Anyway, so this battle is depicted as age-old. And he says it crosses all cultural boundaries and appears in various forms. So whatever culture you're in, the evil you're experiencing might be unique to your culture, but it's still evil. Or darkness. He just calls it darkness. So look at how many movies and archetypes we have that have to have a hero overcoming darkness. This has been around for a long time.
It's in everybody's mindset. Gerald, it's in everybody's mindscape, the duality, light, and you always find that people pretending to be light, and the dark ones are not really that dark. They're probably just being misunderstood, and it's a mix.
Yeah. We even have these archetypal symbols in our Hollywood movies, even in the science fiction Star Wars. With Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're fighting with a lightsaber. Light fighting the dark. It's all over the place. So it's been around for a long time. So maybe we'll probably dig into it a little bit more about who's on which team and why. I mean, that ought to be the first thing. And go, what's the discrepancy, right?
Sure.
Yeah, speaking of discrepancies, I noticed one thing in these tablets that Thoth in the previous tablets indicated that he was born on an island in Atlantis. Maybe that means it was another incarnation. But at the same time, we see that he shows up in the Numa Elish, and he's also related to Enki, shows up as Hermes and Thoth. So it gets a little confusing to me when he says he was born in Atlantis, but then he arrived on Earth in an age-old time along with those avatars. Remember in the previous tablet?
Sure.
So he showed up with 32 avatars, and with him made the 33rd one. So anyway, I thought that was a point to bring up. But he says the battle was age-old and was already in motion when they showed up. So that's an interesting thing. So where did these dark forces come prior to this intercession? That's something interesting to think about.
The Atlantis discrepancy is important. I mean, there's discrepancies in a few things, but there's also similarities too, Gerald. And like we mentioned just before the show, that Norse mythology, Irish mythology, Greek mythology, if you want to use mythology as a label, that is, the similarities, but then there's discrepancies. It's the same players though that are behind all this though, Gerald. This is the same, and I know you use double names like Hermes Ningshide.
Right.
Which I think is
actually one of the ones I know we were talking off air about, and I'll bring it up again real quick. I got confused after reading that Thoth was an Atlantean. He was born on the island of Undal, and then this must have just been an incarnation, right? So I'm trying to follow this through, but then you follow through to the Greek society, the Greek culture, where he had this major battle between the Olympians and the Titans. Well, the Titans were the Atlanteans, and they were portrayed as this awful, terrible subhuman race that was just the destroyer culture, right? Which is totally not true. But so I started thinking, well, if from the Sumerian records forward, we started seeing this rewriting of history,
demonizing as well,
Bible and various cultures, and Enlil was usually at the helm of that. So here he was, the chief deity is Zeus in Greece. What's to make you think that he didn't do some rewriting of history there too to serve his ends? Well, one of the instances that came to my mind was that the concept of the caduceus. Well, there's a story in the Greek mythology, if you want to call it a mythology, where Hermes was on the Olympian Council. Well, here we know Hermes was Thoth. So we're like, wait a second, what's he doing working with Enlil, the destroyer? How does this work? Well, in their account, he was born of Maya Majesta and Zeus. Well, she was actually the wife of King Atlas on Atlantis. So all of a sudden you see these Enkyites crossing bloodlines with the Enlilites and having avatars. So in that story, Hermes wanted the caduceus from Apollo. So he supposedly tricked him into trading him the caduceus for some musical instrument. Well, if you think about it functionally, in a way, Hermes was taking back his role as a healer and as a geneticist from Apollo, who then received the entrainment capability of the frequency of music so that he could use that as his enslaving technique. Listen, we both know music is oftentimes used for mental entrainment. Oh, yeah. So it was very interesting if you thought about it from that side, from a functional trading of capabilities. Well, so all of a sudden you're going, wow, so was Hermes really on the council? Did this really happen? Or is this just a way of describing how he tricked Apollo into getting his functionality as a geneticist and somebody who was helping mankind from a lower level of consciousness to a higher one, which the caduceus represents?
Music is a hypnotic effect for sure. I just want to say, Gerald, there is anybody who rewrites history. They do it for an agenda, because they're not rewriting history just to change a few facts for the fun of it. They're rewriting history because they're changing history. They have an agenda for doing it, and often when you see the same people turning up, we know they're the same people. We know there's cross links between all the different mythologies. It's the same players, but we either find that the story gets changed, somebody gets demonized, or somebody gets blamed for something and where they weren't before, and somebody gets put into the wrong role, or so. Some of the facts stay, but some of it gets twisted, and that's the thing to point out.
Yeah, it's almost like watching a historical soap opera, and really sometimes when you look at it very closely, it seems to almost be scripted to play out these antagonistic roles, whether it's light and dark, or somebody who's an enslaver, or somebody who's a good shepherd king, just comparing and contrasting the functional roles of these advanced beings relative to themselves, and then ultimately with us to each other. And I think there's a lot of lessons in there about learning about what we are as a spiritual being, having a material experience. It's part of our evolution in the simulator. So I think a lot of this light and dark, listen, Thoth even told us that light and dark are both allowed by the creator of all. So they're playing roles, the creator and destroyer sitting and playing chess to each other, betting $1 whether this one's going to win or that one's going to win.
So dark magic's there whether we like it or not, Gerald.
It is, and these dark forces, he describes them as, coming from another dimension, probably meaning another race or of beings from another dimension that have been called in by the by mankind in their stupidity, basically is what he says. And he describes them as being able to be accessed through certain rituals, which we described before. Mm-hmm. And it usually involved, he described it as the rituals that were accompanied with the blood. So usually when there's a blood sacrifice in some ritual, these beings were accessible. And I think that's the same ones he's talking about. Now, these same ones, according to him, way back then, formed secret societies that operated stealthily. And like I said before, when you operate stealthily, you can be far more effective than if you're out in the open where you can be a target. Enslaving with darkness and blinding the soul. So basically their idea was to be here on this planet. Any beings that were here that were not in their inner circle, they wanted them to be their slaves. And listen, we knew that all the way back from the Atrahasis in the primitive worker account with Atrahasis, Enki, and Enlil, when after 600 years it got out of control. So we saw that going back way back in the Atrahasis as well. So they were doing it. These beings were as well. So when you put two and two together, you'll realize that the Dark Brothers were headed by Enlil himself.
You know, I think a lot of people don't understand the economic slavery of our planet, the first world, the second world, and the inception of the third world, and keeping those third worlds in place by perpetual wars. And when I think everybody sees the economic slavery game now, the debt slavery, what goes on, and all the bankers, and they've no problem accepting that now. It's not that big a reach now to extend that to slavery of the soul, or slavery of, you know, at least blinding people so that they can't see their way out. I think that's the clever aspect that you brought up there, John, to blind somebody so they just can't see their way. What better way to...
Exactly. So Thoth accuses them of negatively affecting our dream state, putting destructive thoughts in your mind. Now, if you go look at the functional role for one of these cycle masters that we talked about, and the first one I have to recall was Utanus, and you're going to hear him in the sequence or the process that Thoth says that we can all use to bind the Dark Brothers from our lives. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, there's prayers, but now he's talking about real beings that have real influence over these. So and we'll read that one later, but that was his job, was to shut down your first chakra. In other words, to cooperate with the dark forces to keep you enslaved in darkness. Now, you think about it as a child, when you're young, you don't have the consciousness to hardly do anything but figure out, where you're going to live next and how you're going to make your way. So the idea of working on your evolved consciousness to be aware of what's happening to you as young is ridiculous. So we're so easily ensnared, is what I'm saying, in the illusion of matter through the dark forces and how they work. And then it's a multifaceted assault on your perception, your skewed perceptions. You're easily fooled, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, we don't have signs above their head saying we are dark operating agents.
No.
If we did, it would be great.
Not only that, think about how long it took you in your life to differentiate whether the thought you were having was your own or some influence that felt like it was coming from the outside. That takes a lot of, personal awareness and thinking, having a meta-awareness to monitor your own thoughts.
I think
most people, once a thought turns into something they accept, it leads to an emotion, and then it's theirs, and that's where it ends. It never gets tested at the beginning. So what he's telling you here is, if you're so easily enslaved by your perception of the illusion of your senses, that we should be testing all the spirit of the beings that we encounter to avoid their ensnarement. Of course, now we got TV and radio and everything else blasting you from everything. So it's not just crossing somebody along the street. It's every form of input that you get.
Wow. I got to jump in there. For me growing up, Gerald, I was very blessed because I was always taught, be independent. Be independent to your own thoughts, to your own goal, what you want in life, follow who you are. And this wasn't just a random couple of statements to me when I was a kid and I'd go away and learn that. It was a repetitive education and awareness. Be your own person. Follow your own dream, and it was drilled into me, so I was never given that chance to, because don't forget, the governments they'll all give you your answers for you, yeah?
Oh yeah, well, the idea that the government is running in America, it runs the National Education Association that all schools are funded by. Well, that means they have control over all the curriculum, they absolutely don't want you to be responsible for your thoughts, or or do any of this we're told about. Okay, so they just want you to conform and go along and be a good slave, and learn what to do and what not to do to be on the good graces of your next big parent, which is the government, right? You grow up learning to appease your parent to make them want to love you and give you what you want. Well, they just extend that one step further to your employer and the government, and they keep treating you like that. With these people who are unwilling to go beyond the group think and say no to something that's A, immoral, or B, wrong, but the rest of everybody's doing it, so it must be okay.
Here's something very cunning, Gerald. I mean, we see this in Europe play out into in America, for example. We in Europe, especially Ireland and the UK, can be very patriotic to our country, but at the same time dislike our government. And when I say dislike our government, probably hate our government, but we don't see that as a problem. It's quite acceptable in our society. But in America, especially maybe other countries, maybe Canada, I don't know, but if you dislike your government, you're not patriotic. And patriotism and government is two different things as far as I'm concerned. However,
yeah, I wanted to I'll talk a little bit about it. Any issue that a human could be riled up over to defend, protect, and take up arms and die for probably needs to be examined. And I'll give you a for instance here, okay? In a book I was given some time ago called The Territorial Imperative, there are primal forces in all beings, human beings, that mimic what goes on in nature, whether we like to acknowledge it or not.
Sure.
One is the need for identity. One is the need for territory, so you can get your resources and gather food and all that. And the third is stimulation. Well, the need for identity means that who we are is connected to that piece of dirt over there. Well, that's not true if you think about it from a spiritual standpoint. Who you are is irrespective of where the dirt is. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's an old method to rile up nationalism and patriotism to cause one force to go after another one, in my opinion.
Wait and hear this, Gerald. I got to tell you this. This is, I have to bring this up. I watched Russia Today during the week, and there was a news clip on. I couldn't actually believe it, Gerald. There was a woman in New York who had some sort of a business. I think it was health and beauty or something, and the name of her shop was called ISIS.
Oh, I did see this. Yeah, well, remember we talked about this namesake smearing?
Yeah. No,
look at what's going on. It's terrible.
Just for the audience, Gerald. Okay, so the woman has lost 40% of her business. There has been people ringing her up. She named it after the goddess Isis in ancient Egypt. But this namesake, this Islamic group with the abbreviation acronym, which is I.S.I.S. You know, it's an acronym, not an actual name, but it's in their head. And I mean, I just can't believe for a moment that there's some person out there harassing this woman because the name of her shop is called ISIS. And they're ringing her up, giving her abuse, saying stuff like, you know, do you know who these Islamic people are? They're beheading people. And do you know who you're supporting these people? You know,
yeah, I saw that. Well, the reality is that name came from the Israeli State Intelligence Service. As a smear against ISIS, in my humble opinion. And, you know, it goes on and on and on. Well, listen, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was Enlil. And and for him to acknowledge our true creators, Enki, who was Poseidon, his son Ishida, who was Thoth, Hermes, Mercury, and many other names, and the mother of all humanity, who was none other than Ninhartsog, Isis, to me is his way of saying, I don't approve of the primitive workers that you three put on this planet and now have 7 billion of them. And as far as I'm concerned, you're smeared and I'm going to wipe them out. And that's what's going on. Dark is facing light in an ultimate battle right now.
I just want to draw a note on the story, Gerald, is that people are enslaved, like you say, by this perception illusion. It's given to them by the state. Hey, hate everything to do with ISIS. And as a result, there's a mindless population out there just reacting like robots, and it's a sad state to say, but I just can't believe that they're so successful so quickly with this, Gerald. And it's not good. It's not good, and it's not hopeful for the future. But I know me out there, I'm sitting like going, how could anybody do that? I just at the opposite end of the spectrum, and I just feel sorry for some people out there that they actually do that. that they have no thoughts of their own, and to do that, have you any grasp of even? I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that they can be enslaved so quickly like that.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Kristen just a little while ago about some of the technology that's been around, I've been exposed to, and the idea that you could take an advanced computing system and set up a massive neural network that could be trained with all different inputs. Oh, here's the people's response to a sale at Walmart. Feed that database. Here's their response to a beheading. Here's their response to a train derailment. All the things that are being shown to people in a neural network can be trained up. Once you have that database in this huge neural network, you can expose a what if to the input, and it'll give you the output as a predictive measure. So they've been using software to do this for a long time, gathering data from your cell phone, from your Facebook, all this to build a picture of every single one of us so that they can simulate this in a neural network to basically have an anticipatory input to know when the people are starting to get a little ruffled under the feathers for being pressed too hard as slaves. Okay, so it's this dynamic world simulator, and actually we looked it up today. I won't say it over the air so we don't get cut off, but we have that, and it's been around for a while. So think of it as the all-seeing eye in the synthesis room, so that you can simulate a volcano going off over here and see what all the people on this side do where they go over here, or a disease, or anything else that you want to imagine that you could simulate to see how the slaves respond.
I reckon these.
When you have that kind of tool, you can play some very sophisticated false flag games and all kinds of stuff to drive the mindset where you want. So all of a sudden, you got this woman who has a hair and nail salon that is losing her business because the CIA are barbarians to influence foreign policy, smearing an ancient Anunnaki goddess's name. Now, you just think about that.
I think
that's just messed up. That's just messed up.
It is messed. I think this false flag social experiments is exactly what they are, to see how people react, what they can do with them, and make it happen for real in a different way. It's a massive psychological social experiment to see what they can do and get away. There's a big warning here. A beautiful thing about Emerald Tablet 6, Gerald, is we have a warning in here how to avoid this ensnarement. Let's talk about this, Gerald. Let's talk something positive.
Well, before we go on to that, we ought to connect the dots with the last show. Well, no, let's go on to that. You're right. So I had something prepared for you, and I'm going to pull it out here real quick. Hey, Kristen, would you hand me that wealthy notebook that had that poem in the back? I actually, back in, I think it was 2004, I was sitting and thinking about this very next point that Thoth brings out, where he says we're given guidance to be responsible for our thoughts, examining them before the negative ones become our own. Mm-hmm. So and this really impacted me for some reason. I must have been at the place where I was just waking up to learn how to be responsible for my thoughts. I don't know. But I read something, or somehow it came to me, that fear is nothing more than a belated announcement of a thought you accepted as your own. And the emotions that go with that. Okay, do you hear what I just said?
Say again.
So behavior, we say, no, it's not connected to your thoughts. Well, that's BS. Just watch a couple little boys, age 5 or 6, watching, I don't know, Daffy Duck or any of the cartoons that have so much violence in them, and see if they aren't out, in the yard trying some of that on themselves. Mm-hmm. Especially the little fighting ones where they watch the little martial arts ones. That really gets them going. So the idea that thoughts don't lead to behavior is ridiculous. So with that said, I wrote kind of a poem. Actually, I was going to share it with you. It's only about 10 lines. That had to do with the state of mankind relative to our thoughts. Oh, so wow. Try this on if you're okay with this, and we'll.
Go for it. And, go for it, brother.
I'll see if I can do it justice.
Go for it.
Remember, that was written in 2004.
Okay.
Mankind trapped twixt destiny and fate. For destiny is determined, but it is we who choose our way. Attune therefore the energy, beckoning one and all. Judge not, for beauty abounds, purging fear's constraint. Less truth, oft rejected, destiny's lot to seal, a path that leads to where we hope to find the courage to break out of the square. Pressed by time, energy's threshold sought, the test to pass is wrought. For behold, the final conflict rages, our battleground of thoughts. That was it.
Wonderful, Gerald.
This is absolutely, for me, it was like, okay, let's talk about that. You get something in your head that brings a concept, an image, a thought, something to you that you call a thought. Well, where did it come from? Part of it is from your contextual memory that already exists, that where you burn stuff in the past. So you see something that's familiar, it could bring up a thought, oh, I recognize that, you know, like that. But at the same time, if you've built green, garbagey highways in your thinking pattern, here pretty soon he's going to tell you, you got to deal with that before you get stuff coming from the outside. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about external influences that could be affecting your thoughts. What about, we just said Untana's, his job was to ensnare your mind and your soul with darkness so that you could be trapped in the first chakra and have to work to get out. So all of a sudden you realize, hey, my thoughts are really a part of me getting out of this trap. So becoming aware of them is part of it. And he gets into that, how to deal with some of this, because there are times when you're involved in stuff that go beyond your thoughts. You're not creating your own reality. Some of it's external. As much as you like to think you're creating your own reality and you're a solipsist, that's not true.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You know, when I was younger, Gerald, I read a book called Awareness by Anthony de Mello. It's actually a Jesuit priest, but he didn't write it as a Catholic or Jesuit book. He just wrote it as an awareness book, if you will. I'm no fan of the Jesuits either anyway, but wonderful book. And awareness is a very, very unusual thing to describe. It's how do you describe it, Gerald? How do you give it to somebody that doesn't have it? How do you make them see? It's a bizarre concept to talk about to somebody who doesn't have it. And when you have it, you see the people that don't have it. It's like you have an operating system that they don't, and that's the best way to describe it.
I know we did this once before and talked about awareness being the scope of awareness being tied to the energetic quantized states of your consciousness. So if you're in your first chakra, you can only be aware of certain things. Well, in your sixth chakra, you'll be aware of different things. So that they superimpose upon it and gives you a meta awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So energy in my mind and consciousness affect the scope of awareness. And then you can go back to some of the other interviews I've done where I talk about an AI concept where the reticular activating system is involved in helping the human prioritize what to be aware of now, and it's usually tied to your survival. So this is your situation awareness mechanism for prioritizing what to be focused on right now. And they're usually very sensorial related, not so much on your thoughts as your touch and your smell and your sight, those kind of things.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, he tells you if you can be responsible for your thoughts, the first thing, and he gives you a little ritual with this. He says if you recognize darkness is enveloping you, you're having a bad day, something's going wrong, check and see if it isn't your thoughts coming from internal within you first. And if it is, he tells you to banish the thoughts and then to use a vibratory frequency, probably some breathing mechanism to just clear your energy state to reinforce the pattern that's in your cortronic network in your brain where you've stored this pattern to help rid yourself of it. Because if you keep repeating a thought process in your mind, it keeps reconnecting the neurons and it stays. Whereas if you can see it for what it is, at one point go, oh, that's a thought where I'm having road rage and this is how I'm acting. And you just come without letting the emotion get involved if it's possible. At that point, if you can catch that, you can make it go away. Mm-hmm. And that's an Eckhart Tolle principle of being here now, is if you can be here now, not building a picture of what's happened in the past and telling yourself a story continuously and just being present with what is now, and that includes your thoughts, you can overcome that.
Wow. You know, if we were all just individuals living in nature, out doing our hunter-gatherer thing, we would only have to deal with natural information out there to how far to live in the wilderness. But our territory is the world of information, and it's been subjected on us in a negative way, either through movies or governmental structures, each one individual. You know, is it harmful? Is it? Who knows? There's a mixture of harm and good in there. And this is the
family,
world. This is the world
school,
we're in, whether we like
parents, education, peer groups, you name it. All of it has been designed to shape your thoughts and your behavior to be a submissive proponent of the state's agenda. And now it's getting bigger beyond the state, and then it goes to the federal. Now it's, now we're at world level where the new world order wants you as their slave, and they already own you.
I like that little practical step though, Gerald, just to cut yourself off from it, take a deep breath, clear your energy, get some breathing, know what your own thoughts are, know whether you're connecting those neurons, know what, because your neural path, and I know that myself. I looked at neurology of the brain, that there's this triple mechanism. The memory goes down a neural pathway 3 times before it's burned in forever. The first time it's a random neural pathway. The second time, if it's a similar memory, it will try to go down the same neural pathway, and then if it differs, it will make another little connection at the end. But your brain's memory is just like a spider web of pathways, and once
Well, imagine it's full of chaos and war and trauma and pedophilia in the news, every other form of fallen thing. This is all in your neural network, so it doesn't take much to trigger something that comes up that's negative, right? I mean, that's what it is. So you've got to unplug yourself from the negative influences as well. Yeah, you're not being an ostrich and putting your head in the ground. Occasionally you're going to check in and see what's going on in the world, but you're going to do it from a consciousness state where you're at a meta-awareness, and when you see this stuff, it's not going to cause the emotion of fear. Understand?
Yeah, that's the important point. Don't ostracize yourself from the world out there. It's easy for me. I just turn off the news anyway. I only turn it on to catch up sometimes or see something that I see on the internet. But yeah, I have limited what I watch on the news because it's all just, it's a filter that I have up. But definitely don't ostracize yourself completely. Be sane. Take in the information just that you need, and gather your thoughts. I mean, who does that, Gerald? I mean, it's become something that you have to put in your arsenal as a defense, as a weapon or a firewall, to have this mechanism, and it's something that you just got to do these days because this is the environment that we're in.
Yeah. Well, I think later in the tablet we're going to talk about what we determine to be the ultimate truth. Is it somebody telling us something, or is it something that we feel internally? And ultimately, it comes down to us determining the truth internally. So you get exposed to all of this external influence, reviewing your own thoughts that might have been burned in your head like green garbagey highways. When you recognize that, you need to go through some deprogramming with that. But all of this, we have to be responsible for. So, did we choose to be exposed to all this negativity? No, it's been thrust on us intentionally. So it's part of the enslavement. So now we have to be just as responsible to get ourselves unenslaved. And the first one's dealing with our thoughts. So I want to repeat what I said about thoughts once more, because there's a nugget in there.
Oh, yeah.
Behavior is nothing more than a delayed announcement of a thought you accepted as your own. There's the key. You can have all kinds of thoughts coming in, but to accept one as your own means it's going to turn into emotion somehow, some way. You're going to own it, and it's going to turn into behavior. So you got to get to the place where you're reviewing what's going on in your head and can say, I accept that one and I reject that one. And when you do that, you're on the final battleground to start really accelerating your path to the light. But that's required because of the skewed perception illusion that everybody is in this. The Mayans call it the illusion of Maya. And in thoughts writings, he calls it the illusion of Ka. Well, we're talking about the perception illusion of the external world as our interpretation is reality. It's not.
Wow. Yeah, here we are talking Emerald Sabbath 6, the Keys of Magic, and we're talking about the quest for light and truth, Gerald. This is all good stuff. This is applicable to today, if more than anything.
Exactly. And this next one, now suppose you had a bad thought, you tried yourself to differentiate it, not accept it, keeps coming back. You don't know how to do this frequency thing that he's talking about in order to let, the universal energy, the life energy flow through you and clear yourself. And people in Reiki and stuff are really experts at understanding how to attune themselves to this. And Qigong experts and Tai Chi masters and people that understood human energy in the body in different cultures. Okay. Well, if that fails for you and you're not that far along, he gives you a bulletproof method to clear your path. And this one I absolutely love because I wasn't at the place when I first discovered this, and I've used this one so many times, it's practically memorized. And this is where somebody would look at this and go, oh my gosh, here's where the magic ritual comes in, and this is where all the demons are showing up, right? Well, just read what he says. He talks about the names of the 7 cycle masters that are here controlling our planes of existence, okay? Trying to help us. And the ritual involves you standing and addressing them and asking them firsthand to intercede to get the darkness out of your path. Now, where are the demons in that? Because they're calling out the names that coincide with the Bible is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Mm.
But as you and I both know, these names, they're functionally allocated to the 7 chakras. And they tell you that in the tablets. These are the guys that are controlling the quantized levels of awareness for your existence in this thing we call life. These are the guys. These are the entities that Thoth defers to, that Poseidon deferred to even when he went to battle against the dark forces that caused an imbalance to the earth. These are the ones that control it. They're controlling the wobble cycles relative to consciousness. Okay, you with me? So this one, when you get to this level, and he tells you, if you do this, know that the results are assured. That's how confident he is when he tells you this. So in my path, I've noticed that when things got really bad, this is the one that I would glom to. When I couldn't differentiate the thoughts in my head as my own or external or whatever, that just whatever, this cloud of darkness that, you know how it sometimes envelops you, and it just almost makes you depressed where you just want to climb under the covers and you don't know why.
You know what the wonderful thing is?
Part of it's an external energetic source that's a false Merkaba field designed to keep you that way.
The wonderful thing is, Gerald, that when you attain this, what I call it a skill, or I call it something that you should have, but okay, whatever reason, you gain this later in life, as you say, this awareness, this seeking of truth. And if you were able to differentiate between truth and subjective experience of all this dark information or enslavement or manipulation of the truth or manipulation of perception, and if you're able to differentiate that as soon as it happens, in other words, you see the truth for what it is in an instant, well then that is an incredible skill to have, because you are in that driving seat for the rest of your life. You're in the driving seat for destiny, Gerald, for your own destiny.
That's how consciousness works. Once you go through the gate of awareness, there's no going back. You have the burden of awareness at that point, and now you have to be responsible. So that's it's ever increasing missions that you get as a function of your consciousness. So the more conscious, the farther along you get, the more complicated the task you're probably going to be involved in.
How many people out there don't know what their destiny is, Gerald? I mean, how many?
I would say, according to Drumvalo Melchizedek, with his numbers on 0.01% of the people have probably only activated their Ba field, which is the one that overcomes the illusion of Ka. And this is various ways can be done. He gives you the Merkaba meditation to do it, which I'm a big proponent of. But I'd say definitely less than 1%. So, the Illuminati are talking about eliminating 95 to 97% of the people in order to meet the first commandment on the Georgia Guidestones of 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you can see that that's very possible because the people that are taking ownership of the Ba light sun soul that was given to them as a birthright, as an inheritance from the light beings that created us, there's going to be a small number of them if they don't start waking up and taking responsibility for this gift that was given to them. Now, everything possible has been done to occlude the awareness of and the knowledge of how to take control and possession of that gift that was given to us. And that's why all this perception illusion and all the religions and all the things that don't focus on that, that's why. These dark forces want you to be their slave. They don't want you waking up and having the power. By the way, this last process that Thoth gives you for alleviating darkness from your life. Not only does it call out the names of these cycle masters, but he says, guess what? You can do it for your brother too. And know this, that the knowledge of that is so powerful that those dark forces will come after you. Mm-hmm. So once you get to this level, please do this, because it's real. It's a spiritual warfare that's going on, and these guys can be avatars out of their bodies. So
I'm glad that it's a spiritual warfare. That's the territory we're in today, is spiritual warfare. This isn't, a perpetual war.
Always has been.
It always has been, Gerald. Yeah, it always has been, and that's the more accurate way of saying it. It always has been a spiritual warfare. We just only become aware of it in a group conscience or a mass conscience, or able to talk about it on shows like this, Gerald.
Agreed. And a lot of people are very confused about how to get out of it, and that's why I wrote the Seventh Planet Mercury Rising. Because once I asked myself the question, okay, well, who created the Anunnaki? They told us the creator of all created the Anunnaki. That's what Enki said in his writings. Mm-hmm. And he venerated the creator of all and felt and wrestled with the idea of fate and destiny and doing genetic experiments to augment their mission and the whole thing. Okay? He's like, well, I was given this intelligence to do this. Does that mean I wasn't supposed to do it? So just having the knowledge and then actually doing something with it brings you to the next level of evolution. Well, should I do that based on the specifications of the way to live based on these light beings that came here? And these are the deep kind of questions you got to ask yourself before you go kick off another missile program that's designed to kill people.
Sure. Well, Gerald, what we're talking about here is so valuable, Gerald, and I love the way you're explaining this and synthesizing the data that we have, because don't get me wrong, I'm on the side of truth all the time, Gerald. Whether people are seeking it or have it, or they're not sure, or I'm not sure, I'm still seeking it and wanting it and looking for it and associating myself with it. And there's people out there what I call, quote, truthers, and I don't mean that in any derogatory aspect. I mean, I would call myself a truther if I had to, but they use the name even in the media, truthers, like it's a derogatory thing. Anybody into an alternative concept or seeking truth is like a bad thing. They say it in a derogatory sense or whatever. But the point is, me included, and I've fallen into that trap very, very young, that, just because you're seeking the truth doesn't make you a diplomatic immunity to these dark forces. And I see people in the truth game, Gerald, being manipulated by these dark forces just because just continuously, yeah. Just because these people who are dark say, quote, I'm a truther too, and that's okay, we're all in this truth business together. And even in alternative radio, Gerald, there is a massive onslaught to control it and manipulate it and change it.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't you and I know about that firsthand, brother?
Oh, yeah, we got some that we do, Gerald. But the point is, what we're talking about here is some actual practical knowledge, some skills or steps to understanding truth for what it is in a very psychological, base level, spiritual ascension way, for all of not just lies that's in the media, Gerald, but for all of humanity, to seek these basic innate skills that we should have and should be able to achieve. We should all have this.
You mean those ones that were written in the Handbook of Life you were given at birth, so you knew how to get through the simulator?
The one where they ripped the page out?
Yeah, they burned the book before you ever showed up. But, as far as truth goes, I wanted to talk something about that. That you can be theoretical and experiential at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yep.
So that you pragmatically try a hat on through this hillbilly levels of learning that we described previously, so that you can come to your own truth. Because ultimately, truth is a pathless land, and it's only true if it's true to you.
Wow. Gerald, coming up to the top of the first hour, have we got some points to wrap up on before I play Tablet 6?
Yeah, I would just say I want to re-emphasize that little ritual that he tells you to stand in darkness, in a dark room, in a circle, raise your hand, and say those words he tells you to say. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something. I want to challenge anybody to do that that's a scoffer of this knowledge and see what happens. Try it. I dare you to try it. Because guess what? He says, don't just do this, but do it for your brother too, because they don't deserve to be in darkness either.
Wow.
So do it for them if you don't do it for yourself. Just try it for somebody else first. Yeah, it works.
Wow.
It's powerful. It's one of the most powerful things. Call that the magic, if you will. It's the knowledge that there are 7 beings living in the halls of Amenti, surrounded by the avatar, change cycles to do whatever on behalf of mankind and for Thoth.
Sure.
So there's dark out there, but there's light brothers also that can go to war on your behalf. So use them.
Wow. I think the point is, though, as well, to wrap up, there is duality out there, whether you like it or not. Dark and light, good and evil, black and white. It's always going to be there. Don't fight it. Understand it. Be aware of it. And involve yourself in the side that you want to involve yourself on. I'm thinking most people...
Well, I would say do fight it. He says don't turn the cheek to evil. He goes, take on the tools that I'm giving you and make it disappear. Anytime you shine light on darkness, it's gone. Yeah. So it is kind of confrontational in a way, that he's not telling you to pick up a weapon, but he's telling you the spiritual weapons to use in your path.
Sure.
Which is very deep knowledge.
I mean, don't fight it as in like without intelligence, and fight it in an intelligent way, I should say.
Yeah. Well, you always have to trust and verify, and he tells you don't shun your brother, let them talk to you, but you've got to very quickly distinguish whether they're a dark being disguised as light, and so trust and verify very quickly. So anyway, I guess I would leave it with that. I suppose we'll play the text for this. I think he does a really good job of telling the story, and it's very profound if you listen to the words.
Yeah, like I say, I just find Tablet 6 very valuable, Gerald. Very, very valuable, especially for this day and age.
Yeah. This one is so timely right now, definitely. Because listen, they're pouring darkness on. The Illuminati is pouring darkness on to push the negativity level to what they believe 95%. Well, there must be a reason for that in this light-dark war. Maybe that's to draw the light forces in to see the polarity of how bad it can be and then how good it can be. Maybe that's where we're headed.
Well, I'll play out Tablet 8 and then we're going to go to break, Gerald, and then in the second half of the show we will go to Airborne Tablet 7, and of course you can catch today's author at geraldclark77.com, catch out his blog there, and let's listen to Tablet 6.
Hark ye, O man, to the wisdom of magic. Hark the knowledge of power forgotten. Long ago, in the days of the first man, warfare began between darkness and light. Men then as now were filled with both darkness and light, and while in some darkness held sway, in other light filled the soul. Age-old is this warfare, the eternal struggle between darkness and light. Fiercely it is fought all through the ages, using strange powers hidden to man. Adepts have there been, filled with the blackness, struggling always against the light. But others there are who, filled with brightness, have ever conquered the darkness of night. Where'er ye may be in all ages and plain, surely ye shall know of the battle with night. Long ages ago, the sons of the morning descending found the world filled with night. There in the past began the struggle, the age-old battle, darkness and light. Many in time were so filled with darkness that only feebly flamed the light from the night. Some they were, masters of darkness, who sought to fill all with their darkness, sought to draw others into their night. Fiercely withstood they, the masters of brightness. Fiercely fought they from the darkness of night, sought ever to tighten the fetters, the chains that bind men to the darkness of night. Used they always the dark magic, brought into men by the power of darkness, magic that enshrouded man's soul with darkness. Banded together as in order, brothers of darkness, they through the ages, antagonistic they to the children of men, walked they always secret and hidden, found yet not by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night, silently, secretly using their power, enslaving and binding the souls of men. Unseen they come and unseen they go, man in his ignorance calls them from below. Dark is the way of the dark brothers travel, dark of the darkness, not of the night. Traveling o'er the earth, they walk through man's dreams, power they have gained from the darkness around them to call other dwellers from outside of their plane. in ways that are dark and unseen by man. Into man's mind space reach the dark brothers. Around it they close the veil of their night. There, through its lifetime, that soul dwells in bondage, bound by the fetters of the veil of the night. Mighty are they in the forbidden knowledge, forbidden because it is one with the night. Hark ye, old man, and list to my warning. Be ye free from the bondage of night. Surrender not your soul to the brothers of darkness. Keep thy face ever turned towards the light. Know ye not, O man, that your sorrow only has come from the veil of the night? I, man, heed ye my warning. Strive ever upward, turn your soul toward the light. The brothers of darkness seek for their brothers, those who traveled the pathway of light. For well know they that those who have traveled far towards the sun in their pathway of light have great power, and yet greater power, to bind with darkness the children of light. List ye, O man, to he who comes to you, but weigh in the balance if his words be of light. For many there are who walk in dark brightness, and yet are not the children of light. Easy it is to follow their pathway, easy to follow the path that they lead. But yet, O man, heed ye my warning. Light comes only to him who strives. Hard is the pathway that leads to the wisdom. Hard is the pathway that leads to the light. Many ye shall find the stones in your pathway, many the mountains to climb toward the light. Yet know ye, O man, to him that overcometh, free will be he of the pathway of light. For ye know, O man, in the end light must conquer, and darkness and night be vanquished from light. Listen, O man, and heed ye this wisdom. Even as darkness, so is the light. When darkness is banished and all veils are rended, out there shall flash from the darkness the light. Even as exist among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. Antagonists they of the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers they have mighty and potent, knowing the law the planets obey. Work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man-soul from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also, known not are they to the children of men. Ever they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end. Yet always light shall in the end be master, driving away the darkness of night. Ay, man, know ye this knowing, always beside thee walk the children of light. Masters they of the sun power, ever seen, yet the guardians of men. Open to all in their pathway, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark Amenti, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they and lords of the morning, children of light to shine among men. Like man are they, and yet are unlike, never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness eternal throughout all space since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with the all-one, up from the first space formed and unformed. Given to man have they secrets that shall guard and protect him from all harm. He who would travel the path of the Master, free must he be from the bondage of night. Conquer must he the formless and shapeless, conquer must he the phantom of fear. Knowing must he gain of all the secrets, travel the pathway that leads through the darkness, yet ever before him keep the light of his goal. Obstacles great shall he meet in the pathway, yet press on to the light of the sun. Hear ye, O man, the sun is the symbol of the light that shines at the end of thy road. Now to thee I give the secrets. Now to meet the dark power, meet and conquer the fear from the night. Only by knowing can ye conquer, only by knowing can ye have light. Now I give unto thee the knowledge, known to the masters, the knowing that conquers all the dark fears. Use this, the wisdom I give thee. Master thou shalt be of the brothers of night. When unto thee comes a feeling, drawing thee nearer to the darker gate, examine thy heart, and find if the feeling thou hast comes from within. If thou shalt find the darkness thine own thoughts, banish them forth from the place in thy mind. Send through thy body a wave of vibration, irregular first and regular second, repeating time after time until free. Start the wave force in thy brain center, directed in waves from thy head to thy foot. But if thou findest thine heart is not darkened, be sure that a force is directed to thee. Only by knowing can thou overcome it. Only by wisdom can thou hope to be free. Knowledge brings wisdom, and wisdom is power. Attain, and ye shall have power over all. Seek ye first a place bound by darkness. Place ye a circle around about thee. Stand erect in the midst of the circle. Use thou this formula, and you shalt be free. Raise thou thine hands to the dark space above thee. Close thou thine eyes, and draw in the light. Call to the spirit of light through the space-time, using these words, and thou shalt be free. Fill thou my body, O spirit of life. Fill thou my body with spirit of light. Come from the flower that shines through the darkness. Come from the halls where the seven lords rule. Name them by name, I the seven, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. By their names I call them to aid me, free me and save me from the darkness of night. Untanos, Quertas, Chiatal, and Goiana, Huertal, Semveta, Ardal. By their names I implore thee, free me from darkness and fill me with light. Know ye, O man, that when ye have done this, ye shall be free from the fetters that bind ye, cast off the bondage of the brothers of night. See ye not that the names have power to free by vibration the fetters that bind? Use them at need to free thou thine brother, so that he too may come forth from the night. Thou, O man, art thy brother's helper. Let him not lie in the bondage of night. Now unto thee give I my magic. Take it and dwell on the pathway of light. Light unto thee, life unto thee. Sun may thou be on the cycle above.
The whole picture in order to make the best decisions at wherever I am in the simulator. And I learned this as a military pilot too. You know, it's a situation awareness issue that humans have. Mm-hmm. And as a system analyst, you try to be aware of all the things that are affecting a system. So you're trying to develop a meta awareness. Mm-hmm. Well, I do the same thing with everything that I do. And it turned out on this Anunnaki thing, I had to stew on it for a very time too. And it's not fully put together. I mean, they have occluded who they are and what their role was, so that when you're operating as a force in secret, you can be far more effective than you can when you're out in the public. Mm-hmm. Okay, because you don't even know where to go to attack the source, right? That's causing either good or ill. So operating in secret is a very powerful thing, and we're going to talk about what they did in the Emerald Tablets, both light and dark, and this idea of facing darkness in our paths. Yeah, everybody kind of goes, yeah, I'm having a rough day or whatever. But listen, in this tablet, he makes the idea of this struggle, this warfare between light and dark, very real, and nobody is exempt.
Wow. Let's just, for the audience, we're going to do two tablets today, Tablet 6, and then the second half to show Tablet 7. Tablet 6, The Keys of Magic. If that wasn't an illustrious title, if ever there was one, Gerald, The Keys of Magic. What is this magic? Let's get into this, Gerald. Let's go into in deep.
Well, like everything else that Thoth does in the Emerald Tablets, he presents it to you poetically as a scientist, oftentimes using multiple repetitious sequences of different symbols to try to get it through your thick skull, right? Sure. So he titled it The Keys of Magic, but so the first thing you think is, oh gosh, there's all these incantations in here, we got to make some pots of witch's brew and all. No, not at all. So
Gerald Clark 77.com, and without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi Gerald, you're very welcome to the show.
Hey James, it's really terrific to be back with you. I'm really excited to pick up back where we left off.
Yeah, it's like a meeting of the minds, Gerald, and I get so much out of these shows because I I love the knowledge, and I love the background and the depth of research that you do, Gerald. And I know we took a break for the last show on Nibiru, which was fantastic, by the way, and it's getting great hits. And what a body of research you did for that, Gerald. Nice to take a break from the Emerald Tablets. I know we're coming back to them today. We're going to do Emerald Tablets 6 and 7 from your book, which is Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. That's what we're focusing on for this podcast. I'm really feeling excited, Gerald, because we're getting somewhere, and this has been like a journey for us too. Do you see that as well?
I do, and because of the topics in Tablet 6 and 7, it goes right to the heart of what's going on in society today and some of the profound issues that the Nibiru status report brought up, and facing your fears of transition. Those get addressed in these two tablets, so I think it's very timely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and this is the thing, Gerald. A little confused at the start. I went, Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. What's this got to do with the Anunnaki? Why this change in title of the book? Gerald was doing this Anunnaki book, and now he's doing this Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising. But I get it now, Gerald. The more I do every show, the more I get it. And this is about rising, Gerald. This is about ascension. This is about knowledge. And it's about this mix of spirituality, history, technology, our origins, civilizations, and it's all in there in the one big mix, whether we like it or not. And this is what we're trying to sift through, Gerald.
Well, you said that really well. I don't know if I could have said that any better, but the reality was I saw the Seventh Planet, Mercury Rising as a direct extension from the question that got asked by many people: if the Anunnaki genetically modified a Neanderthal to create us, then who created the Anunnaki? And, you know, that goes right to the heart of, well, who's this creator, God, whatever label you want to put on this intelligent force that manifested all matter and put us into the state we're in? A deep, deep question. Who we are, where we come from, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, when you realize that one of their Anunnaki progenitors that was a benefactor to mankind, and that was Thoth in Egypt, that was Ningshita in Samaria. This was Enki's premier scientific son, second one born after Marduk. Well, he turned out to be a interest carrier for Thoth, so that's why I chose him to tell the Anunnaki story that not only exposed how you were enslaved, but what the way out was. And that's what we're trying to focus on. Yeah, we kind of got ensconced heavy in the Emerald Tablets, but there's a lot more to the book than just Chapter 5. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get to that.
And we'll get to that, for sure, Gerald. What I love about the shows we're doing, Gerald, is there's so much information in your head that I just love, because it's coming out, and it's coming out in a very beautiful way, and that's what I'm trying to do on these shows, is to get that out and deliver it to the public, because there's just so much more behind what you've done in the book. It's prolific.
Well, you said something on a radio show, and I hope I didn't interrupt you. Just the other day that I listened to you, you described yourself as a systems engineer and an analyst. Well, I played that role many times as well, and I have this particular problem, I guess you could say, where I don't like pieces. I want to see the whole piece.
Understood, and it's a mix.
Yeah. Well, we even have these archetypal symbols in our Hollywood movies. Even in the science fiction Star Wars, you know, with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're you know, fighting with a lightsaber, you know, light fighting the dark. You know, it's all over the place. So it's been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll probably dig into it a little bit more about who's on which team and why. I mean, that ought to be the first thing. And go, what's the discrepancy, right?
Sure.
Yeah, speaking of discrepancies, I noticed one thing in these tablets that Thoth in the previous tablets indicated that he was born on an island in Atlantis. Maybe that means it was another incarnation. But at the same time, we see that he shows up in the Enuma Elish, and he's also related to Enki, shows up as Hermes and Thoth. So it gets a little confusing to me when he says he was born in Atlantis, but then he arrived on Earth in an age-old time along with those avatars. Remember in the previous tablet?
Sure.
So he showed up with 32 avatars, and with him made the 33rd one. So anyway, I thought that was a point to bring up. But he says the battle was age-old and was already in motion when they showed up. So that's an interesting thing. So where did these dark forces come prior to this intercession? That's something interesting to think about.
The Atlantis discrepancy is important. I mean, there's discrepancies in a few things, but there's also similarities too, Gerald. And like we mentioned just before the show, that Norse mythology, Irish mythology, Greek mythology, if you want to use mythology as a label, that is, the similarities, but then there's discrepancies. It's the same players though that are behind all this though, Gerald. This is the same, and I know you use double names like Hermes and Ingshide.
Right.
Which I think is
actually, one of the ones I know we were talking off air about, and I'll bring it up real quick. I got confused after reading the. First of all, you got to ask yourself, what is magic? Magic is advanced knowledge that you don't understand. So anytime somebody does a scientific breakthrough or something that's not known to the rest of the world, well, it's magical until everybody else understands how it works. I'll give you anti-gravity, for instance. That's magical. Only the UFOs can do that. Well, if you knew the secrets of overcoming gravity, well, you'd have that magic too. So the idea of redefining that term is what I want you to think about. So this tablet starts by setting this historical background. Way back, it turns out to be the inception when these avatars, remember 32 of them came down with him to assess the state of the planet, realizing everybody's enslaved in darkness. Well, this is kind of a continuation on that. So this historical background. He talks a little bit about this emergence of darkness and the warfare with the light. And it goes all the way back to the very first days of man. Well, which genetic offspring are they talking about? The one that the Anunnaki did to the Neanderthals, or were there others? Right? Because some of these beings state that they had forms of being a man, and they ascended, and now they're playing these various roles as light beings, avatars that had in the past being a manifestation of matter as a man. So that's trippy. Anyway, so this battle is depicted as age-old, and he says it crosses all cultural boundaries and appears in various forms. So whatever culture you're in, the evil you're experiencing might be unique to your culture, but it's still evil, or darkness. He just calls it darkness. So look at how many movies and archetypes we have that have to have a hero overcoming darkness. This has been around for a long time.
It's in everybody's mindset, Gerald. It's in everybody's mindscape, the duality, light. And you always find that people pretending to be light, and the dark ones are not really that dark. They're probably just, being misunderstood